thousands of us that are hidden are going to go march to the government, say we got to stop this population law. You might remember, why did they say the population law was put in place in the first place? Caden.
Because
food shortages. All right, so they said food shortages, right? But her dad said it's just how it's distributed, not necessarily we don't have enough. It's just not getting to the right people at the right time.
And they can't have potato chips.
Yeah, all the snack junk food. Done. Soda. Right? Right. All right, so Jen, and Jen also posted on a message board.
Farmers don't.
Yeah, farmers are wasting the wheat. You know, the government's making them waste their wheat, basically. Saying that if we fed those to the hogs or fed those to the animals, we'd have more food. So they think that that's, a big sham, like she said. So hung out. That was they got a signal now to show the lights. And then, that was it, right? All right, no popping during reading. That just sounds insane to me. Sorry. All right. Actually, didn't say thousands. I lied. It said hundreds of us, of the other kids. So that must mean she knows there's more. Obviously, right? If she's talking on there, she must know that there's more of them.
And
Yeah.
they found out that Luke doesn't exist.
Yes.
They had his fingerprint.
Yeah, bro. And she's like, I ran it through the National Fingerprint Database. So this chick has the legit government connection internet, to look stuff like that up. You can't just go and look up fingerprints right now. You know what I mean? I can't fingerprint someone and go look up and see if Grayson exists or not. I can't do it. Right? Can't do it. Cops can. We can't. All right. Anything else? Oh yeah, him just saying all he eats is what they grow too, right? Well, those kind of go along with the snacks, but it's in the garden or they trade it with somebody, right? All right, so chapter 18. We're going to read 18 and 19 today. Let's get it going. I'm literally going to look at the last thing she said. Oh, that's when they're talking about the rally. And Jen said with as bubbly as a shaken soda, "You can come too, won't it be great?" So I think Luke's just in there she has lost her mind, right? For real. All right, chapter 18, page 84. 18. Page 84. Luke said. He couldn't look at Jen's triumphant grin. I don't think I... He thought about how terrifying it was just running back and forth between his house and Jen's. Even this morning, on his third run through their yards, his heart had pounded so hard, he'd wondered if he could burst from fear. And, in the yard at least, he was sure, or as sure as he could be, that no one else was watching. How could Jen think he could dare go out in public, where he knew people would see him, people in the government, no less, and say, "I'm a third child. I want to be treated like everyone else." "Scared," Jen said softly. Luke only could nod. Jen turned back to the computer. "Well, I am too," she said matter-of-factly. She typed something and then looked back at Luke. "Some. But don't you think it'll be a relief? No more hiding, no more pretending, just being free." Luke wondered if he'd always misunderstood the meaning of the word relief. Jen's rally sounded like the worst nightmare. "You can think about it," she said. "You don't have to decide anything today. Now, ready to chat?" Luke looked back at the computer screen, where rows of words were unfurling. "Carlos, it's 1:05 here, and my parents think it's a waste to run the AC during the day. Can you say heartless?" "Sean, why don't you just crank it up, then turn it off again right before they come home? That's what Pat and I do. They'll never know." "Carlos, yeah, but my parents probably read the electric bill." "Yolanda, so what are they going to do, ground you?" "Carlos, good point. I'm searching for temp control right now." "Yolanda, where's Jen?" "Sean, you know she never gets up this early." "Carlos, curses. My parents would have the temp control locked somehow. Told you they were evil. Where's Jen? I can't wait for her sarcastic comment." I think it's like a chat room or like a message board. Luke read the words Jen was typing. "I'm right here. And Sean, I do get up early. I just don't always choose to see you first thing. And Carlos, what's wrong? Is there a sweat in your eyes? There's only an R, and there's the only R in sarcastic." She hit another key, and the words appeared right with everyone else's. They were followed quickly by another line. "Sean, good morning to you, Jen. Glad to see you're still among the living." Jen typed quickly. Nah, just among the hidden. Ah, there it is. Not the same thing at all. She sent it too. Yeah. What is it? Luke asked. Some sort of game? You remember Jen entering and Carlos before, never explaining who he was. Were there some sort of computerized imaginary friends? Yeah.
You have to record.
Yes.
Oh.
It's already doing it. Here you are. Thank you for checking though. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. What is this? Some sort of game? You remember Jen mentioning a Carlos before and then never explaining who he was. Were these some sort of computerized imaginary friends? Carlos, Sean, Yolanda. They are all third children.
Oh.
Sean's even got a brother, Pat, who's a fourth child.
Oh.
This is how I talk to them. Luke watched the next line of type appear. Carlos, thanks for the sympathy, Jen. But how? Luke asked, still doubtful. Oh, it's the net, Jen said. If you've got a spare hour or two sometime, I'll give you the technical gobbledygook to explain it. All I care about is that it works. I'd die without someone to talk to. She was typing even as she talked. Luke craned his head to see what she wrote. Guess what? The kid I told you about, Luke, is here with me. Uh-oh, she told everybody. Quickly, 3 "Hi, Lukes" appeared on the screen. Luke fought down panic. But the government, he said. They'll find me. Jen playfully slugged his arm. Chill, okay? Nobody from the government can get in this chat room. We all use a password. Just third children know it. And anyhow, even if someone else read this, what would they know? Just somehow in the world there's some kid named Luke? Big deal. But they can trace your computer, and then they'll find me too. Luke's heart was still pounding. Look, if they could trace people through the computer or through this chat room, wouldn't they have found me a long time ago? Jen asked. Luke tried to think clearly. Your parents, he said. You said they bribe people, so you're safe, but mine. Jen was shaking her head. No, I'm not safe, she said grimly. Even my parents couldn't bribe the population police if they found me. Maybe to keep them from looking, but maybe not even that. The population police get some ridiculously big reward for every illegal they find. Why do you think I hide it all? Why do you think we have to have the rally? Everybody ought to be safe. And nobody should have to use bribes just to walk down the street or go to the mall or take a ride in a car. Luke glanced back at the computer screen where the conversation continued. How did all those people find out the password? He asked. How did you? Well, I created the chat room, so I made it up. And I knew a couple other shadow kids, and I got my parents and their parents to get the password to them. And then some of those kids spread the passwords to the other kids they knew. Last time I counted, I had contact with 800 kids.
Oh, wow, Lord.
Luke shook his head. He didn't think even his parents knew that many people. So what's the password? He asked. Free, Jen said. It's free. 800 kids.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. All right, chapter 19. Luke left Jen's that day with a pile of books and computer printouts clutched to his chest. Some reading material for you, she said, so you'll understand. Back in his own room, Luke sat down on his bed and opened the first book. It was thick and carried a title of ominous black letters. The Population Disaster. The type inside was small and closely spaced. Luke read a sentence at random. While debate continues over the carrying capacity of the earth, he skipped ahead. If the total fertility rate in industrialized countries had remained at or below 2.1, Luke saw that reading this book would ever like a puzzling out of letters Dad got from the government. He glanced at 2 other books, The Famine Years Revisited and The Population Reversal. Anybody know what famine is? That means people starve to death. So the 2 other books, The Famine Years Revisited and The Population Reversal. They looked no easier. The computer printouts were at least brief, but both The Problem of the Shadows and The Population Law, Our Country's Biggest Mistake, were full of big words. Luke sighed. He was tempted to put the books aside and then just ask Jen to explain them to him. And he might have, except for what she said, and she'd begun handing them to him. Oh my gosh, I didn't think you could read. Can't you? Of course, Luke answered stiffly. I was reading in the chat room, wasn't I? Yes, but you could have been, oh, never mind. I offended you again, haven't I? Me and my big mouth. It wouldn't have been anything to be ashamed of, even if you couldn't. Oh, I'm making things worse. I'll shut up. Here. And it seemed to Luke that she pulled an even bigger book off the shelves after that. Now he resolutely turned to the beginning of the population disaster and began reading. Since some elements of the overpopulation crisis were foreseen in 1800s, an uninformed observer could only wonder why humankind came so near a total annihilation. But Luke reached for a dictionary and settled in for a long haul. It rained for the next several days, so Luke read constantly, not even tempted to race over to Jen's instead. He could hear Dad banging around downstairs, stomping in and out from the barn or the machine shed. Now that the harvest was in, Luke thought Dad might be bored without the pigs to take care of. So Luke read cautiously, always ready to shove his population book under his pillow and replace it with one of his adventure books. The preparation paid off on the fourth day, when he heard his Dad's footsteps on the stairs. Hey, Luke, what are you up to? Nothing, Luke said, turning to Treasure Island right side up at the very last moment. Dad didn't notice. Want to play cards? They played rummy on Luke's bed. Luke could feel the corner of the population disaster poking his back through the out of the entire game. And he kept wanting to ask Dad about what he was learning. He spent most of his first game biting his tongue. Dad won. Again? Dad asked, shuffling the cards. If you don't have any work to do. In November, with no livestock, only work I've got now is figuring out how we're going to pay these bills once the hog money runs out. Isn't there some way to grow stuff inside during the winter? Like down in the basement with special lights and lots of water and extra minerals? And then you could sell it? Luke asked without thinking. He just finished reading a chapter in the population book about hydroponics. Dad squinted. Seems I did hear a tale of that once. Luke won the next hand. Dad didn't seem to be concentrating. At the end, Dad said, Mind if we quit now? Luke was terrified Dad would ask where he'd heard of hydroponics, so he just said, No problem. Dad left muttering, Growing food inside. Luke wished he had the nerve to ask about the population law, or the families, or even some family history. Once he got past the dense language, the books Jen had loaned him were full of revelations. As best he could understand it, the world had simply gotten too full of people about 20 years earlier. Poor countries had it particularly bad, and people that were often starved or were malnourished. But then something worse happened. Terrible droughts struck part of the world that always grew the most food. For 3 years, they grew almost nothing. People everywhere starved. In Luke's country, the government, they don't even tell us. In Luke's country, the government began rationing food, only allowing people to have 1,500 calories a day. And to make sure there was food, they seized control of all food production. They forced factories that make junk food to crank out healthy food instead. They forced farmers to move land so they'd be more likely to produce. Is that why we don't live near our grandparents? Luke wanted to ask his parents. But the government didn't think that was enough. They wanted to make sure there would never, ever again be more people than the farmers could feed. So they passed the population law too. In the evenings, spooning his stew. So that whole paragraph basically just told us the story, right? We're pretty much another inside scoop. Ew. In the evenings, spooning his stew or cutting up his meat, Luke felt pangs of guilt now. Perhaps someone was starving someplace because of him. But the food wasn't there. Wherever the people were starving were, it was here, on his plate. He ate it all. Luke, you're so quiet lately. Is everything all right? Mother asked one night when he waved away a second helping of cabbage. I'm fine, he said, and went back to eating silently. But he was worrying that maybe the government was right and that he shouldn't exist. Only when he got the two computer printouts did he begin to feel better. One of the articles began, "The population law is evil." The other said, "Hundreds of children are hidden, mistreated, starved, neglected, abused, even murdered
Oh,
for no reason. Forcing children into the shadows can be counted as genocide." Genocide is like killing of a whole population of people,
oh my lord.
right? How can this be? He asked Jen a week later when he finally got a chance to go back to her house. "How can the books and articles be so different?" She handed him a glass of soda. "What do you mean?" she asked. Luke pointed to the population disaster. "This book says the human race would have gone extinct if we hadn't done the population law. And this," he held up and shook the Problem of the Shadows article, "this says the population law was totally unnecessary and cruel. It says there were plenty of food, even during the famines, except that the barons were hoarding it." Ooh, the barons were hoarding it. Belatedly, he remembered that Jen was a baron. Sorry. Jen shrugged, not the least bit offended. "So what's the truth?" Luke asked. Jen shook potato chips into a bowl. "Well, think about it. The government allowed those books to be published. They probably even paid for them. So of course they're going to say that the government wants people to believe. They're just propaganda, lies. But the articles, the authors of those probably put themselves at risk getting out the information. So they're right." Luke pondered that. "Then why'd they make him read the books?" he asked. "So you'd understand how stupid the government is," Jen said. "So you'd understand why we have to make them see the truth." Luke looked at the stack of thick books on the Talbots' kitchen counter. They looked so official, so important. Who was he to say they weren't true?